Sandra packed on a Wednesday in March 1993. I know it was Wednesday because I had a job walkthrough scheduled in Bessemer at 2 in the afternoon, and I was annoyed she had picked that particular day to do this. That is not a detail I am proud of. I'm putting it in because it's accurate. She had 2 suitcases and both daughters in the car by 11 in the morning. She didn't make a speech. Sandra was never a speech-making woman. She said, "I've been telling you for 3 years what would happen." And then she left. I went to Bessemer. I am 78 years old. I have had 32 years to think about what kind of man goes to a job walkthrough on the day his family leaves. What I've concluded is this: it wasn't that I didn't care. It's that the business and the family had been at war for years, and I had already picked a side without ever formally picking it. And by March 1993, Sandra knew who had won. She just made it official before I got around to it. That is the whole story, compressed. Everything else is just the details of how a man builds a thing and loses a different thing and eventually sits in a house in Birmingham at 78 with a mild hand tremor and the specific knowledge that he was not a victim of circumstance. He was the circumstance. I want you to understand what the business was before I tell you what it cost. I started Okafor Electrical in 1974 with a used van, $1,800 in tools, and a commercial license I'd studied for during nights, while working days for Consolidated Electric. I was 28 years old. I had married Sandra 2 years earlier. Renee was born in 1973. Keisha came in 1975, the year I landed my first real contract. A 6,000 square foot office fit out in Homewood that paid $22,000 and established the business as something real. By 1984, I had 4 employees. By 1991, 14. Peak revenue in 1990 was $1.2 million. I had built that from nothing, and I understood every circuit in every building we had ever wired, and I knew the name of every man on my crew, and I was, by any measure I was using at the time, winning. The tremor in my right hand wasn't there in 1990. I held a coffee cup clean back then. Steady hands were part of the job. An electrician whose hands shake is a liability. I was steady and I was building, and I believed the building justified everything it was costing. I was wrong about that, but I want you to understand I wasn't foolish. I was disciplined, focused. I was running a complicated operation and doing it well. The mistake wasn't stupidity. That would be easier to explain. The mistake was that I was very, very good at the wrong thing. In my 30s, the plan was simple. Sacrifice now, deliver later. I had a version of this conversation with Sandra approximately every 4 months from 1977 onward. The version varied slightly each time. The substance never did. The business needed this year. Next year would be different. Once we hit a certain number, first it was $500,000 in annual revenue, then $750,000, then $1 million. Once we hit that number, I would ease back. Sandra was a practical woman. She asked, once, in 1979, what easing back would look like in concrete terms. What would I actually stop doing? I told her I'd stop working Saturdays. She looked at me for a long moment and said, "You'd last 3 weeks." She was right. I knew she was right when she said it. I laughed. She didn't. That Saturday conversation was 1979. I worked Saturdays until 1997, for years after she had left, when I blew out my knee on a site visit and had no choice but to stop. The plan in my 30s was, I'm building this for us. The family will benefit. Here is what that plan missed. A family is not a retirement account. You cannot make deposits for 15 years and then draw down warmth and presence at the end. The account doesn't work that way. There's no compound interest on missed dinners. Sandra understood this. She tried to tell me. I heard her as a complaint about cash flow rather than a statement about what a family requires to survive. By my 40s, the plan had changed, though I didn't announce the change. The new plan was, I'll repair it when I have more time. Sandra left in 1993. I was 47. I told myself, and I want to be precise about this because the exact shape of the line matters. I told myself the marriage had failed, but the relationship with the girls was intact. That Renee and Keisha knew I loved them, that they would understand when they were older what I had been building and why. I'll tell you what Renee told me when she was 26, which was 1999. She came to the office. She'd never come to the office before. She sat across from me at my desk and she said, "Dad, I don't know who you build all this for, but I need you to know it wasn't for us. We needed you at Tuesday night dinners, and you gave us a college fund. Those aren't the same thing." Then she stood up and left. I sat at my desk for 11 minutes after she walked out. I know it was 11 minutes because I watched the clock the entire time. The way you do when you know you should be running after someone and your legs don't cooperate. I didn't go after her. I had a site meeting at 3 o'clock. Some of you are reading this and thinking, he just kept choosing wrong, over and over. How is that possible? I can tell you how. Each individual decision felt defensible. Each one had a reasonable justification. The site meeting mattered. The project had a deadline. The money was real. It was only when you laid all the decisions out in sequence, which I did not do until I was in my 60s with nobody left to call on a Sunday, that you could see it was never a series of hard choices. It was one choice, made the same way 10,000 times. I need to stop here and tell you about Keisha, because she is the part one don't fully understand yet. Renee and I have a relationship now. Strained, careful, maintained at a distance that has become the normal distance. She sends a card at Christmas. No return address. I've always read that as her way of saying, I'm not completely gone, but I'm not giving you the chance to show up unannounced either. I can live with that. I did it to myself. Keisha I have not spoken to in 11 years. The last conversation was a phone call in 2014. She was 38. She called to tell me she was getting married and that she wanted me to know, but that she had decided not to invite me to the wedding. She said, I've spent 20 years waiting for you to choose me once. Just once. I'm done waiting. I held the phone after she hung up. The tremor in my right hand was just starting then. 2014 was around when I first noticed it, and I remember my hand shaking slightly against the receiver. I don't know if there was a moment I could have saved that. I've gone back over it enough times that I've stopped trusting my own accounting. The memory of a man who wants to believe he tried harder than he did is not reliable evidence. What I know is that she called to tell me she was getting married, and she had decided before she called that I wouldn't be there. That is not a woman who gave up on her father in 2014. That is a woman who had been giving up on him slowly since 1993 and finally finished the job. In my 50s, after the divorce, after Renee's office visit, while Keisha was still talking to me, but barely, the plan shifted again. Now the plan was, the business will outlast all of this. I'll build something that stands. Gerry Okafor, who had poured 30 years into Okafor Electrical, sold it in 2009 for $340,000 to a buyer named Harland, who said he saw strong bones in the operation. Harlan shut it down in 2011 when he couldn't make the commercial contracts pay. By 2012, there was nothing left with my name on it. No business, no marriage, 2 daughters at varying degrees of gone. I want to be precise about what that felt like, because I promised myself I would be honest about this part. It felt like nothing for about 6 months, like a circuit with no load, everything in place, nothing running. And then, slowly, it felt like arithmetic. The specific and merciless arithmetic of a man adding up 35 years of decisions and arriving at a number he can't dispute. You make enough of the same choice, you stop getting to call it a choice. It becomes who you are. I chose the business. Not once. Thousands of times. And the business is a parking lot in Homewood now, and I don't drive past it. Here is what I would tell you to do with this. If you're in your 40s or early 50s and you recognize something in what I've said, not the big version, not reprioritize your life. I am not equipped to tell you how to live. Just this. When you are in the moment of choosing, when the site meeting is at 3 and your daughter just walked out, the choice does not feel like a choice. It feels like the only reasonable next step given the circumstances. That feeling is the trap. The circumstances will always produce a reasonable next step away from the people who need you. Always. There will always be a deadline, a contract, a number that needs to be hit. The work generates its own urgency. That urgency is real, and it will be there tomorrow and the day after and the day after that, right up until the day it isn't. Because you sold the business to Harland and Harland closed it, and now it's a parking lot. Your daughter's childhood has a different schedule. It runs once. No extensions. No rescheduling. I knew this. I had known this since Renee was born in 1973. It was not information I lacked. It was a truth I kept finding reasonable ways around until I ran out of time to find another way around it. The tremor in my right hand is worse in the mornings. By afternoon it settles. I've learned to hold the coffee cup with both hands in the early hours, which looks like something an old man does, which I suppose is what I am. Some mornings I pick up my phone and I think about calling Keisha. I've had her number for 11 years. I've never dialed it. I've come close twice. Once in 2018 when I was in the hospital for 3 days with a blood pressure event. Once last year when I heard through Renee that she'd had a second child. I put the phone down both times. I don't know if that's cowardice or something I'm not seeing clearly yet. I'm not certain those are different things. What I do know is this. I spent 35 years believing I was building something permanent. The business is gone. The marriage is gone. One daughter is an address I don't have and a phone I won't dial. The only permanent thing I built was the distance. Don't build the distance. Whatever you're constructing right now that feels like the main project, it is not the main project. The people who will sit at your table when you are 78 are the main project. Everything else is a parking lot waiting to happen.